College Game Day is presented by Discover Card, proud sponsor of college football's premier pregame show.
Well, make no mistake, this is the Huskers' house, and very few of these players. Now, what do you think about a home loss? Coach is asking them to play with hearts of Lions today to atone for last year. Bob Stoops, though, and his Oklahoma Sooners, they know that Barry Switzer owned this house. 6-2 here. The Sooners always with that swagger. 20 straight wins. It's the first visit here, though, for this group. And good morning. Welcome to Lincoln, Nebraska, and the 90-minute College Game Day. Chris Fowler, Lee Corso, Kirk Herbstreit. Impossible not to get caught up in this atmosphere. It was Ron Brown who gave us the speech last week, the Nebraska assistant, talking about hearts of lions. We'll count down to kickoff right here and on ESPN. Another good one, Ohio State, Penn State. As BCS standings have come out, that's the backdrop, and this really is shake-up Saturday all over the place.
Well, if you are a college football fan, enjoy today. In my opinion, this might be the best collection of games of the entire year. You have to get a hall pass today. This is one of those days you sit down, getting your favorite chair, order ESPN Game Plan, and enjoy 12 to 14 hours of college football. BCS impact games all over the place. Plus, it's my mom's birthday. Happy birthday, Mom.
Nice.
Great day today.
What a nice son you are.
Isn't that nice? All right, enough
All right, now
enough
I'm really excited to see if any new home game winning streaks go by the tubes. You know why? Because in the past 2 weeks, Florida State's 54-game winning streak, gone. Oregon last week, 23 games in a row, gone. Nebraska's got 19 straight here. Virginia Tech's got 16 straight in Blacksburg. Either one or both of those streaks could go today.
And Oklahoma's got a streak of 20 straight wins, so something's got to give.
That's right.
I know it's chilly out here, fellas, but please, that's about as close as we want you to get.
I'm with you.
Besides the BCS 1 versus 2 tussle, UCLA and Virginia Tech, as Lee mentioned, on upset alert. Unbeaten upstarts, Maryland and Washington State trying for breakthrough victories. The SEC pecking order being challenged. Jopa, of course, going for that record against Ohio State. But we start our roundup at Stanford, where UCLA, for the third straight week, gets to feast on a replacement quarterback. Hard to believe. There's Shelley Smith.
Here at Stanford, backup quarterback Chris Lewis, who led the Cardinal to an upset victory over Oregon last week, will try to play the spoiler again today versus 5th-ranked UCLA. The Cardinal will try to do it with the nation's top punt return man and a basketball player who's feeling very comfortable at wide receiver. More about them later in the show. Now let's go to Jacksonville and Tony Barnhart.
Now, Shelley, Georgia has lost 10 of its last 11 games to Steve Spurrier and the Mighty Gators. But there's hope in the Bulldog Nation with a new coach and a young quarterback who is bound for greatness. Florida's coming off a tough loss to Auburn, but history says the Gators will bounce back in a big way. Folks, it's time again for the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. And oh, by the way, the winner stays alive in the rugged SEC East. Chris?
Tony, I know you enjoyed the landing down there in Jacksonville. Now, despite the newfangled backdrop here, the BCS decimal points, and talk of a rematch in December, Oklahoma and Nebraska once again stands on its own as a great rivalry. The 80th meeting kind of reawakening the living ghosts in this rich history here. It's the week of Halloween, not Thanksgiving, but it's still a defining game. Well, Nebraska is going to reveal more of its character and its quality in the next 4 hours than it has in its first 8 ball games. Oklahoma is more battle-tested, but once again, it is called on to prove itself. That is life in the rugged Big 12 Conference. Just as last season, this is a 1 versus 2 in the BCS. We can tell, though, from recent years, the numbers can change very quickly. And because of the looming conference title game, today's winner can't get too comfy, and the loser certainly is not out of it. Steve Cypher's injury is a factor. So many walking wounded that it's hard to count them. Adrenaline, can it overpower the pain in the ankles and the knees today?
Well, we'll find out, Chris. The 6 Nebraska starters who missed all or part of last week's game will all suit up today. However, fullback Judd Davies and wingback John Gibson are very questionable. On the Sooners side, offensive tackle Wes Sims is out. That means true freshman Gerard Fields comes in for his first college start. Sooners hoping that he will step in and the team will not miss a beat. That happened 3 weeks ago at Texas when quarterback Nate Hibble went out with injury, and in stepped a nervous Jason White.
It was kind of hard to, keep my composure. The first play that I called, that's understandable, but, you know, I mean, but after a while, he got into his groove, and he, like I said, he always gave me a little smile, let him know it was okay, and it was time to play.
White led the Sooners to that win and then came in against Kansas to rush for more than 100 yards. Last week, he made his first college start, replacing Hibble.
It's really pretty simple. He's earned that position at this point.
In a way, I'm surprised, but I know that, you know, I've worked hard over the last couple years since I've gotten here, and I think it will pay off in the end.
Touchdown, Oklahoma! A threat on the ground, he's completed 68% of his passes. Against Baylor, he threw for 343 yards, despite getting sacked 8 times.
He's the guy in Little League when you're playing baseball, gets hit in the face with a line drive when he's on the mound, wipes the blood off and just keeps playing, you know, and you're just like, this guy's crazy. You never know what Jason White's going to do. He can either throw the ball or, you know, he can run the ball. And he's never afraid to do either.
It doesn't matter to him if he throws or run, you know, he's just trying to, you know, make a big play.
The same way Nebraska's Eric Crouch did 2 years ago when he was a sophomore trying to jump Bobby Newcomb for the starting job.
I always told myself that I was never going to give up, never quit, and I never wanted to sit back, you know, and look back on my career and say, you know, what if I would have done this? I never wanted to have that what if in my mind.
Can a team make a national championship run by changing quarterbacks in mid-season?
You know, I feel that if you change, you know, once, you know, you can make a championship run. But if you keep changing back and forth, you know, it's going to be hard.
Chris, in 1994, Nebraska had 3 different quarterbacks start. That team won the national championship. Frazier, Behringer, and Turman.
And Steve, here's some recent history. Speaking of quarterbacks, it was very tough for visitors to win here. You have to have a pretty good quarterback. Major Applewhite, Billy Joe Hobert from Washington's co-national title team in '91. Darian Hagan for Colorado in '90 with Eric Bieniemy. You also got to have a Heisman finalist, and Ricky Williams was the key guy back in 1998. One other thing you have to do, you have to catch Nebraska in a down season. All 3 of those years were kind of down years for Nebraska. So if Jason White can come in here on his second start, Kirk, and play very well, he must be a special guy. We know he's got the special sideburns right there.
First thing he has to do is, now that he's in the limelight, he's got to lose the chops.
Oh, yeah?
It's about 6 inches there, too much girth. You hear players say it all the time from these kind of programs. They love the opportunities to play in big games. And look at both these teams. They have a lot to prove. Nebraska has a chance to avenge last year's embarrassing loss to Oklahoma, still control their own destiny to get to Pasadena, playing at home in front of these great fans. So they are going to play with a lot of intensity for 4 quarters. Oklahoma, they play their best games in these kind of situations. Bob Stoops is 8-0 against top 10 teams. From practice on Monday all the way to the end of the game, there's more of a focus from this team when they play in big games. They're always ready.
Boy, they're the best at that.
Yeah.
There's no question about that. But when you study the backgrounds of these football coaches, you can see they're products of their mentors. Bobby Stoops played at Iowa for Hayden Fry. Disciplined and optimistic. He coached for Bill Snyder, organized, and he coached for Steve Spurrier. Very excitable and also very competitive. Now you look at Frank Solich. Cool, calm, collected, intellectual, honest, unquestioned integrity. Sounds just like Tom Osborne. Both these guys will win and are going to be winners for a long time, both in their own styles.
Don't be alarmed, folks. This is Little Red dropping by for a visit here. You're right. This is a very important game for Solich personally. Maybe his most important game. And for Stoops, if his staff wins this game, the mystique just continues to grow. How you doing? Good to see you. They've never been humbled, that staff. They don't know what it's like to be humbled. It's going to happen sooner or later. Maybe eventually. It's silly. These guys don't care. They're thinking Pasadena. So is Tracy Wistrom. He's part of a family legacy here in Nebraska. We'll meet those guys. Can Roy Williams step up, make another big play? We'll break down this game coming up. And also the other games around the country, like Maryland with Bruce Perry trying for a monster breakthrough win at mighty Doak S. Campbell Stadium. More of College Game Day Live from Monday coming up. And welcome back to Lincoln, Nebraska. More in this game coming up. And meanwhile, Game Day Q&A, our usual national sampling of opinions on the question, who or what is the biggest surprise of the 2001 college football season?
Probably Maryland. I mean, they're undefeated. They're 7-0. I don't think they were a team that people expected to be in the position they are, and I think that's probably a big surprise.
Us being ahead of Florida State in the poll, that'd probably be the biggest shocker so far this season.
Fresno State losing to Boise State, I think. That's pretty surprising. I remember watching that last Friday night just thinking, what? You know, how'd that happen?
Not as surprising to see Fresno losing last night again at Hawaii. Well, Maryland, certainly it is a stunner that they have the better record, the higher ranking, and control of the ACC race as they try for a breakthrough win, their first ever against Florida State. Combined score the last 2 years, 108-17. Ouch. But it's the 2001 Terrapins who've trailed for only 13 out of 420 minutes. Their defense leads the ACC in points allowed. They have the pro prospect in E.J. Henderson, the linebacker. The Terps' new swagger has made news in Tallahassee. The mock war chant by the fans last week. Ralph Friedgen's joke that if Chief Osceola brought that flaming spear too close, he was going to get doused with the Gatorade bucket. The new coach is serious, though, when he talks about being on a mission and bringing only true believers on the bus to Doak Campbell Stadium. Scott Van Pelt reports on how the fridge has brought the Terps out from their shells way ahead of his own schedule.
He's brought an intensity back to our program that we lack.
It's unexplainable, everything that he's brought to this program.
I want to win. I don't care how we win. I don't care if we win 2-0. I don't care if we win 45-38.
He's a winner, and he's always been a winner.
He's coming in with one purpose, that's to win.
He's going to jump these guys. They're not going to know what hit him.
He's coming in, he ain't trying to, brown nosing anybody. He ain't trying to be everybody's friend.
But I believe everything he said. I put all my trust in him.
And finally, after overlooking him several times, Maryland put all their trust in Ralph Friedgen as well. A man who knew of their history, the national championship, the Atlantic Coast Conference dominance, because he lived it, playing for the Terps in the late 1960s and coaching here under Bobby Ross in the early 80s. By hiring the Fridge, Maryland both embraced and dismissed their past all at once.
There's been a preconceived notion of who you can and can't beat here, and he wanted to change that in some way, shape, or form.
I said that I wasn't going to judge them on their past. I was only going to judge them on their present and their future, that we're all Terps, and that I was going to coach them to the best of my ability. And all I asked from them was the best that they had to give, and that's what they've given me.
Touchdown, Terrapins! Explosive into the end zone. Touchdown, Maryland.
I believe he's done that by instilling discipline in us and confidence. And I think that's the main difference between this year's and last year's team.
Yeah, I'm disciplined. I have rules. I don't apologize for the rules. I mean, I don't have a rule that doesn't make a player a better person, a better player, or a better student.
Whenever he tells us something, a rule or something, that he wants us to do on the weekend, a curfew or anything like that, we're going to follow it because of the success that we've seen, that we've had because of that.
Here in College Park, legend has it that if you rub the nose of Testudo on the way to take an exam, you'll have good luck. That's why the nose has always been so shiny. The football team, however, puts more stock in the notion you can tell the difference between luck and skill by its duration. The longer they remain undefeated, the more believers they'll have.
We've gotten a lot of respect after the Georgia Tech game. There's still some to be given, I think. You can't expect too much knowing our past track record here.
You just want to show people that, it's not the Maryland old no more. We've had a successful year, but we're on the verge of having a great year.
They run for deep off the ball. Maryland wins. They recover the fumble, and the Terrapins are undefeated.
We just can find a way to be successful this Saturday, then we'll worry about next Saturday.
That's how I go into it every week. I could never, God forbid we ever lose a game, but I could never look into his eyes and feel, I don't know what I would feel looking into his eyes knowing we had lost. I mean, that's how we go out every week. Like, we're not going to lose. I mean, we're not going to lose for us, and we're definitely not going to lose for him.
As I said, the Noles have noticed and they're not particularly impressed. The players are. But, Lee, they do have respect for Friedgen's offensive mind. When he was calling the plays in recent years at Georgia Tech, they were very successful against the Noles.
Boy, that's an excellent point. In his last 2 years at Georgia Tech as the offensive coordinator, Ralph Friedgen's offense averaged 28 points a game. The important part about that against the Noles is that's twice as many as any other opponent. And he did it with the triple option and then rollout passing on the goal line. Number 14, Maryland quarterback Sean Hill reads the tackle, gives the ball to the fullback Leach, touchdown. Now here, number 14 rolls out to the right on the goal line. He loves this play in the goal line. He comes out, boom, touchdown. Kirk, this is a very important point. This is the first time in Florida State's history they've ever played an ACC team that's ranked higher than them. First time ever. But the Noles win this one in the fourth quarter because they got more depth. That's the only reason.
Yeah, a lot of athletes. You look at Maryland's offense that Coach just talked about. They've been very efficient this year, but I think they're still lacking big play wide receivers. I think it's up to the Maryland defense to make some big plays in this game to give themselves a chance at winning and pulling off the upset. Gary Blackney, the defensive coordinator, has inserted the zone blitz package, and E.J. Henderson, Lee and I love this guy. Arguably one of the best inside linebackers in all of college football. They, as a team, have 22 sacks on the year. The defense is designed to confuse quarterbacks. Maryland leads the nation with 17 interceptions. And I think the Maryland defense will keep it close. I really do. I think they're going to create turnovers, confuse Chris Ricks, but as I said earlier, they don't have enough playmakers to beat Florida State's defense. You can't run the ball and have a conservative short passing attack and beat the Noles in Tallahassee. I like Florida State.
Maryland needs help, you say. And Ricks has had 8 turnovers in 2 games. He might not be allowed too many before he gets out of there today. But if the Noles can run the ball like they had the last 2 weeks, so it's going to be very tough for Maryland. Rooting for the Noles today because they need a Maryland loss in that ACC race. The Tar Heels of North Carolina. Carolina has turned it around after the 0-3 start. They bring a win streak into Atlanta. We'll see you there Thursday night. I have the pleasure of joining my
All right.
Yeah,
That'd be
it's
great.
going to be a great game.
Jackets a lot to play for still, they say.
North Carolina a lot to play for.
Hey, I'm going to see my grandson, Nicholas Lee.
Yeah.
All right.
A lot of work.
A lot of family stuff tonight.
Everybody getting a family shout-out. Michigan at Iowa will break that game down. And, of course, Jopa shares the streak with Paul Bryant. He can break it today against the Buckeyes. That's the ESPN noon Eastern game. We'll talk about that one as well. And welcome back. Lee, there's some potential props for you later on. Go snag those. And the Big Ten, Michigan is the only unbeaten team. Michigan, the only unbeaten team as they take on Iowa, but the Wolverines don't handle leisure time all that well. The last 2 times they've had off games. They've come back and lost after that. Iowa's 4-0 at home, could easily be 6-0, but the Hawkeyes are going to prove if they're a bowl team or not in the next 3 weeks. They have at Wisconsin and Northwestern coming up. Liddell Betts is getting healthy, but Iowa's best chance to turn this into an offensive struggle, and the defense is symbolized by the little sophomore safety, 5'8", Bob Sanders, flying around. He brings the fire. He's twice knocked off ball carriers' helmets making tackles, and he had 25 tackles against Indiana last week. Now, you two Big Ten guys probably aren't going to give poor old Iowa and Lil Bob Sanders much of a chance in this ball game, but we'll see.
We'll see. Be careful. I loved Iowa all year long. I love the Hawkeyes, but also love the Wolverines this year. This team has been remarkable. We've been talking about it for the last 4 weeks. Lloyd Carr and his offensive staff have done an unbelievable job, not only replacing 7 starters, but their play calling. They're opening up the playbook and allowing their athletes to make big plays. And they have some receivers led by Marquise Walker. You think Michigan loses David Terrell, they're going to have a drop-off. Look at him run right into your living room, goes up and makes the catch against Washington. He has big playability, 43 catches on the year, averaging close to 100 yards a game, 6 touchdowns, and he gives Michigan an extra attitude on the outside. Chris talked about Iowa. Their defense has been good all year, especially against the run. Look for Michigan to open it up early, throw the football to Marquise Walker, and then come back to the running game. Iowa's improved, but Michigan is still better. I like Michigan to win.
Now I know why everybody likes you. You like everybody. I mean, you like everybody. But I like Michigan because they got 3 of the strongest football players in the skill positions in the Big Ten. The quarterback is John Navarra. His passing. He's got Marquise Walker receiving. But the key guy is B.J. Askew running the football. Number 35, Askew, is tough. He's just bang you right in there. But this is my favorite coming up here. I'll watch this play coming up here. Askew catches a screen coming off here from Navarre. But watch it. He hurdles the guy right here. Whoop, boom. That's why I like him so much. Now, I disagree with Kirk. I think Michigan's going to come out and test that Iowa's manhood. Bang, bang, bang. And then they're going to go over the top to score. So I like Michigan by 2 touchdowns, just a different way than my man.
Game plan disagreement.
That's okay.
It's heated. John Navarre, you're right. He about almost 200 attempts this season, only had 1 interception that the coaches say is his fault. Reminds us of Tom Brady, who's now starting for the New England Patriots. Right. Meanwhile, Penn State certainly hoping momentum won't be short-lived. They rally from behind 5 times in Northwestern, just a gutsy victory. But then on the charter home, the plane gets stuck in the mud in the Midway Airport runway. They had to spend the night in Chicago, come home on Sunday. It could be a bad omen. Mud aside, though, Penn State should be emotional today and finally confident. We're going to see if it's the false confidence that comes from just using old-school football against a defense like Northwesterns. A Penn State win would certainly atone for a lot this season and be a sweet way to give Joe Paterno sole possession of the all-time win record. Steve Levy will call the game today, and he checks in now from outside Beaver Stadium. Steve?
Chris, all signs point to State College, Pennsylvania today. Over 107,000 fans will gather at Beaver Stadium, making this the third largest city in the state of Pennsylvania after only Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, bumping Allentown down to number 4. And all 107,000 likely be rooting for Joe Paterno. That's everyone except Jim Tressel and his Ohio State Buckeyes. Tressel said even more than not wanting to be Paterno's record 324th victim, they're trying to avoid their third loss of the season.
And there are some interesting dynamics here simply because of the fact that Penn State started the season 0-4, and everybody thought that when are they going to get their victory? Last week against a ranked opponent, they did just that, beating Northwestern. And, of course, as you pointed out, I think almost the entire nation is rooting for Joe Paterno. That's a problem for the Buckeyes and Jim Tressel. I think he has a young team, and I think it's difficult going into a place like this. 107,000 are against you. His team needs to be focused to avoid the hoopla.
Since joining the Big Ten in '93, Penn State has the second best record in the conference. Chris, only Ohio State's is better.
All right, Steve. Kirk, I know you know some folks not rooting for Joe Paterno today, but I'm going to be watching this Ohio State offense, speaking of game plans, because old Jim Tressel, they're throwing it up there against Akron and San Diego State.
Yeah.
Will they do it on the road conference game? Open the offense up. We'll see.
Well, I don't know if you can open up the offense right now. You look what San Diego State and Wisconsin have done the last couple weeks. They're outnumbering Ohio State up front, taking away the Buckeyes' strength running the football, forcing Steve Belisari to throw to win. It's confused Ohio State. They haven't been able to perform. Look for Penn State again today to load up the line of scrimmage, try to take the running game, and force Steve Belisari to throw. Ohio State's offensive line for the last 3 years has been a sieve. Steve Belisari, he's very lucky that he's athletic, so he's able to avoid some of the pressure. They would lead the nation in sacks if it weren't for his athletic ability. Here's Ohio State's best passing play in most cases. Pressure, as always. Steve Belisari avoids the pressure and scrambles for a touchdown. And today, Penn State's going to walk up to the line of scrimmage and say, number 8, throw the football. Offensive line, protect number 8, or we're going to stop you. I think it's going to be a great game. Penn State emotionally is going to be fired up. The difference, Ohio State's defense. I think Ohio State's defense will win this football game by creating turnovers.
That's a nice pick. That's a nice pick.
Thank
But
you.
I think Penn State showed a lot of heart last week in their win over Northwestern. As Chris said, they came from behind 5 times to win it. At the end of the game, the leader of the offense was their quarterback, Zach Mills. Now, you watch Mills, number 7 here, roll out to his left and hit Eric McCoo, 22 seconds to go in the game, win. Fourth quarter rally, he hit 5 for 8. Zach Mills did. I think Penn State needed that win. I think they will come back, and I think they'll be fired up, and I think they'll get Joe Paterno the record, and I think this time they'll carry Joe over across the field like they should have last week.
What happened so suddenly last week? The players, they didn't get a chance to host.
I agree. That's what I think.
I worry in a close game about Ohio State's kicking. They are 4 of 12 from field goals, a pair of freshmen. That's tough in a close game.
They're working on the extra points. First the extra points, then the field goals. One thing at a time, my friend.
We'll see how all that stuff works out. Noon Eastern time on ESPN, Ohio State, Penn State, Notre Dame, and Boston College. The Irish bring in a 3-game winning streak, and for now, the Dump Davy talk has been silenced. We'll talk much more about that game coming up. We talked about Jason White. He was a hero in the Cotton Bowl. Good against Baylor, but this is his second career start and his first on the road.
Wiley stands at his own 24, waits for the snap. Rogers deep for Nebraska. Here's Wiley's kick, gets high. It holds up there. Rogers takes the ball at the 30. He's hit and got away. Back upfield to the 35, to the 40. He's to the 45. He's to the 50, to the 45, to the 40, to the 35, to the 20, to the 10. He's all the way home.
Had a chance to see Johnny the Jet last night. Because of that punt return, he hasn't paid for a dinner in this stage since. You realize the 2001 Sooners would have to run the table, win a second national championship just to get within 20 wins of the D1 record of 47 straight. Bud Wilkinson's Sooners in the 50s were so dominant, their second team would have been ranked in the top 5. No kidding. True story. Kansas fans once stormed the field, ripped down the goalpost, and Oklahoma fans were booing because the Sooners had just won by only 36-12. During an astounding span of 100 games between 48 and 57, Oklahoma was 94-4-2. They were tough players who grew up plowing fields and working cattle and laying pipe, all finely tuned by the genius of the coach whose presence and hair color earned him the nickname the Great White Father.
Go back and watch the Grapes of Wrath. That wasn't exactly what Oklahoma was like, but that's what a lot of us thought we were like and what much of the nation thought we were like.
They'd had tough times in the Depression. They were broke. They had no jobs. Everything went bad. And the people there wanted something to be proud of.
Bud Wilkinson's Sooners gave the state something to be proud of, running off 31 straight wins from 1948 to 1950. Bud's boys opened the 1953 season with a loss to Notre Dame and a tie against Pittsburgh before running off a new streak of 30 wins in a row. By going 10-0 the next season, the Sooners eclipsed the NCAA record of 39 straight victories by Washington. But the streak almost ended at 35. On November 3rd, Oklahoma came under heavy attack.
On the road, they were losing to Colorado in the second half, 19-6. I don't know if he ever gave a pep talk that will go down in history. But, I mean, he had a way of getting the teams ready.
He came in at halftime, and he simply came in and said that we didn't deserve to wear the red jerseys we had on our back.
And he says, take off the jerseys. So the players take off their jerseys.
And that's all he said, and left.
Bud walked back into the locker room, and he was face to face with this light bulb.
He said that nobody thinks you're going to win except me.
At that point, Big Billy Pricer, the fullback, ran through a 20-foot door, flattened it, which motivated his teammates so much they followed him through the door. They didn't have their jerseys on. The coaches were having to yell, put your jerseys back on, put your jerseys back on.
And we came back in the second half and blew them out.
The 1956 Oklahoma team, many believe, is the finest college football team ever fielded. During that season, only 4 opponents scored at all.
The first, second team sometimes were finished at halftime because of the scores were up there.
If we were going to play Kansas State, who at that time was the seller of the league, he would tell us that this week Kansas State is going to come at you harder than any other team we play this year for the first 5 minutes.
When he confided only in the quarterbacks at the quarterback meeting that we were going to kick their butts.
Everybody wanted Oklahoma to lose because it's like any other streak. When's it going to end?
Norman, Oklahoma, November 16th, 1957. The Sooners were favored by 18 points over the school that last beat them. In a scoreless game with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter, Notre Dame was deep in Oklahoma territory.
They'd been in our goal line 2 previous times. We held them 4 downs. This particular time, they ran a sweep and got it in the corner, and that was it.
They had a couple of series, and they tried to throw the ball, but that wasn't their bag to have a drop-back passer. But I don't think they got inside our 20-yard line.
Notre Dame won 7-0, ending Oklahoma's winning streak at 47.
I remember I was flying back from SMU, and I was reading the Sports Illustrated magazine, and on the cover, it said why Oklahoma was invincible. And the pilot announced that Notre Dame had just beaten Oklahoma.
The silence that remained when that final gun went off, it was just stunning to me. It was as if the world had literally come to an end.
After that game, there were people crying, there were players crying.
He walked to the center of the room, and what he said was, the only people who don't lose are the people who never played the game.
A couple of streak milestones. It was exactly 45 years ago today. Oklahoma went to another shrine of college football, took on another highly regarded quarterback, Paul Hornung, and beat a admittedly bad Notre Dame team 40-0. And by the way, when they tied Washington for the existing streak, it came against Nebraska, and already up 47-6 lead in the final 2 minutes. Old Bud Wilkinson put his starters back in the ball game for one final touchdown to impress the pollsters. That kind of defies his image a little bit.
Well, not for me it doesn't, because let me tell you something. The mystique of Oklahoma football for me when I played and when I was a young coach was centered around Bud Wilkinson. Why? Because not only was he a winner, he was always a gentleman, he was dignified, and I'll tell you what, Bud Wilkinson to me was my coaching idol. I always tried to be like Bud Wilkinson in everything I've ever done, because I thought he was the best ever.
One of the greatest of all time, and the tradition has continued at Oklahoma down the line. Think about being a new head coach, inheriting a program with such rich tradition. In my opinion, one of the most important things is to embrace every former player and every former coach. And I think the three coaches that took over after Barry Switzer alienated themselves away from Barry Switzer because of the success and also the controversy. The best thing that Bob Stoops has done is he's embraced the past of this program. I think it's one of the reasons Oklahoma's back up on top of the college football world.
You know, Barry's in town. He came up with a bus with a bunch of family folks. Yeah, he's going to visit with Tom Osborne. You're right. Wilkinson was a class guy. That's my point. Even those kind of guys back then, and known to run up the score a little bit, because he was certainly all class. Special teams always a factor. Sooners are always strong in that area. Kind of had a bad special teams week last week, and Tim Duncan, he's been shaky. He needs to pull things together today. This 10 of 18. Thunder Collins and Nebraska get ready for the Sooner defense. We'll break this game down. And will the Virginia Tech defense get a challenge today from Syracuse? Maybe it's not a woodshed beating after all, if you saw a couple years ago. And we're back in Lincoln. It was right here way before the BCS. There was a 1-versus-2 game. Another defensive struggle. OU wins it here on the road. Many think it's a defensive struggle today. You know, Frank Beamer did not spend the bye week peeking at Miami tape or sweating those BCS numbers, because he respects Syracuse and he remembers that last year the Hokies needed a 5-zip turnover edge to rally past the Orangemen. The offense with Vic and Lee Suggs really got stuffed. Now, sure, Lane Stadium is usually a woodshed for Syracuse, 124-10 the last 3 games, but the Cuse are confident. Okay, we've seen that before. They do have a 6-game winning streak coming in here. It's built on good run defense and James Mungro running tough down there in the red zone. He has as many career rushing touchdowns as the great Jim Brown. And it's also built, Kirk, on the developing playmaking of R.J. Anderson. At Syracuse, they are beginning to just quietly say the name Donovan McNabb again. It's early.
Be careful.
I know.
And he's going to get tested today by one of the best defenses in all of college football. They have been dominating this year. You look at the stats right now. They're #1 in the nation in rushing defense, total defense, scoring defense, passing efficiency defense. I don't think there's anything left. These guys have been great, but we don't know how good they are yet because of who they played. Today we're going to have a better idea. As Chris mentioned, R.J. Anderson, the Orangeman, becoming a little bit more confident offensively. He has the ability to run the option, run the football. Last week, he can throw the football. Last week, he threw for over 300 yards. He has the ability to get the ball downfield. He had 300 yards in one game, is very good for a Syracuse quarterback. They haven't had that since Donovan McNabb. I think they'll be competitive today against Virginia Tech until the second half. When is always in Lane Stadium, something happens. A turnover, a block punt, the avalanche ensues. It's over. Virginia Tech will take care of business, but it'll be in the second half.
That's a good call, you know, because I tell you what, Kirk has already talked about the Virginia Tech defense, and they are sensational. But here's another unknown strong point of Virginia Tech's football team. They have scored 11 non-offensive touchdowns since the early 2000s. That's sensational. And they've averaged 41 points a game. Their new quarterback, Grant Knoll, is the reason why. Now, you watch Grant here. He gets in a shotgun, and he looks for number 88, Andre Davis. Now, I think Andre Davis is the best big play receiver in all of college football. There is nobody better than this guy. Now, you want Grant, as he hits number 93, Bowling Win, the tight end, right in that situation. I agree with Kirk. I think Tech's balanced offense, balanced defense, Blacksburg, Virginia, and all that stuff. Syracuse is gone. 2 touchdowns, Virginia Tech to winners.
Now, you saw those 10 touchdowns from Knoll. That's more than Michael Vick had all of last year. Only been sacked 5 times, which is important because you played Dwight Freeney, who's given away 75 pounds to the tackle who's trying to block him. I don't think his pass rush is quite as big a factor on the road because the offensive line of the opponents, well, the noise is not a factor there when you play like you down in Blacksburg. The offensive line gets confused. Time now for questions. We don't have any Cameo appearances from Mr. Berman or Golick or Harold Reynolds. Just some good folks right here in Lincoln, Nebraska on both sides of today's issue.
Hey guys, this is Ben. I'm Julian, and this is Miles. And we'd like to ask how Oklahoma will cover Nebraska's awesome running game.
Well, I think Oklahoma, what they're going to do is put 12 guys up in front. They're going to put the 13th guy back. That's the way they're going to stop it. With 12 or 13 guys, you don't stop it normally. Nebraska's got a pass to beat Oklahoma.
A young guy worked the mic pretty well. He's got a kind of future in broadcasting. Question number 2.
Hey, Kirk, it's Jamie. Welcome back to Lincoln.
And I'm Kelsey, and I have a question for you. Eric Crouch seemed to be loved across Nebraska, but the people in the rest of the United States just don't think that he's going to win the Heisman. What do you think?
Well, I think if Eric Crouch is able to engineer a victory today, I don't care what his numbers are, the fact that he has a chance to beat Oklahoma will not only put Nebraska in the driver's seat in the Big 12, it'll put Eric Crouch in the driver's seat of the Heisman Trophy. There's a lot on the line today for Eric Crouch. If he wins this game today, he's right up there with the top names for the Heisman Trophy.
I agree with you, but I think Deshaun Foster, you saying he's going to get shut down by Stanford?
Yeah, but no, what about Ken Dorsey, Miami?
Ken Dorsey? Okay, I think Deshaun Foster's in the driver's seat for the moment.
Right now he is.
Right.
Yes, right now he is.
Question number 3, is it a team effort again?
This is good.
Lee, I'm Paul Johnson from San Diego, California. Everybody knows UCLA can win it on the hardwood. What's it going to take for UCLA to win it on the gridiron?
I tell you, Kirk and I were tremendously impressed with UCLA the first time we ever saw them against Alabama. I think that defense, Kirk, I think they got a chance to run the table. They're that good.
Yeah, they are that good. The one thing you wonder about UCLA, these next 3 games, Stanford, at Washington State, Oregon back at home, can they survive those 3 games? My opinion, no. I don't think they run the table.
The questions are so good. We have a bonus question. Question number 4 today.
This is terrific.
Lee, every year you change your mind on whether or not you like the Huskers or you hate the Huskers. Why don't you just make up your mind?
Okay, I've made up my mind. My favorite team is Duke.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks it's personal. Everybody thinks you like them, you hate them.
You know what? We like the pick. Whoever you pick, that's who you like.
That's right.
Come on, you like Oklahoma?
I like Duke anyhow. Duke's my favorite.
In basketball.
That's right. Well, I thought he asked that.
If you want to talk basketball or football, ESPN.com, Lee Mail and QB Mail, these guys will answer the questions all week long. Hey, our West Coast friend that asked us a question, he's interested in this Stanford-UCLA game. Chris Lewis trying to fill in and help the Cardinal put off the upset, but a very tough task against one of the Butkus front runners. That's Robert Thomas from UCLA. We'll break down this one and the other big Pac-10 game, Oregon-Washington State, coming up from Lincoln. Perhaps no player carries more responsibility today than Eric Crouch. 3,000 club in career yards passing and rushing. 32 wins as a starting quarterback. Well, for UCLA, number 3 in the BCS, that challenging 5-game journey to try to stay at home for the Rose Bowl really begins. They'll need all of that maturity to navigate that one today, because the Stanford Cardinal has, to quote Travis Pfeiffer, defensive tackle, they have harnessed the power of belief. They have no fear. They want to deny Deshaun Foster today and make Corey Pause follow up his sharpest game ever with another one that's just as good. Randy Fasani, shell for perhaps a month. Chris Lewis, a hero off the bench, but 0-3 as a starter. So for the 3rd consecutive week, and this is amazing, UCLA's defense faces a replacement quarterback because the starter was injured the previous week. Shelley Smith, the Bruins are good enough without needing any kind of guardian angels to help them out in this situation.
Exactly, Chris. And the shocker here is not the quarterback situation. It's that the Stanford band actually practices. Who would have thought it? Last week, they were running around crazy when Stanford's 6'7", 245-pound wide receiver Teo Johnson torched Oregon's 5'8" cornerback Rashad Bowman to the tune of 95 yards, a touchdown, and a 2-point conversion. This week, the job of guarding Johnson goes to UCLA's 5'9" cornerback Ricky Manning Jr., who says that size is a psychological thing.
You don't jump with him, you jump through him, you know? I mean, you got to get between him and the ball and try to jump through him or take one of those arms down. That's the way I look at it. You know, the ball's in the air, I'm not going up there to get the ball, I'm going up there to get him. And that's the thing, he don't have to make a one-hand catch against me.
If there's anybody in the country that would have a chance to compete against a guy like Teo Johnson, it would be Ricky Manning, because he's a fierce competitor. I mean, he's going to bite him, he's going to kick him, he's going to scratch him, he's going to do whatever he can to compete.
The way I look at it is big man on big man, you know. They measure by their height, I measure by my heart and my performance. So, you know what I'm saying, let's go to war, big man on big man.
Now, the Bruins will also have to deal with Stanford's flanker Luke Powell, who is the team's leading receiver and also the nation's top punt return man. And Chris, with Stanford's big offensive line and UCLA's attacking defense, a lot of people think this could come down to special teams.
Yes, Shelley, among the many eye-popping stats of the Bruins defense, look at the opponents in the red zone. It's been impossible to run. 25 rushing attempts down there, 8 total yards. It's been a little bit easier to pass the football. Still hasn't been that easy. Tyrone Willingham of Stanford last night, Kirk, he told us he wasn't even aware of these stats. He was all scared he wasn't going to sleep at night. But seriously, he knows he's got the weapons on the outside. Maybe they'll throw some fades instead of trying to run the ball in there.
Yeah, they do have the weapons, and we're going to find out how good both teams are today. We've talked all year about UCLA, the marked improvement with their defense. Next 3 weeks, find out how good the defense really is, because even with Randy Fasani down, Stanford has plenty of offensive firepower. In the backfield, they have a combination. Kerry Carter, powerful back. Last week had a great football game. He has 7 touchdowns on the year. Brian Allen averages 31 yards on a kickoff return, but he also, as a running back, averages 6 yards a carry. Teo Johnson, 6'7", 16 yards a catch. And Luke Powell is the quick playmaker, averaging 18 yards a catch. If Stanford's offensive line can hold off the pressure and protect their young quarterback, they will score points today. I think they will score points, but not enough. I think UCLA and Deshaun Foster will outscore them. I think it's going to be a very close game with UCLA winning.
That's a good job, and I agree with you 100%, Kirkland. You remember last year, the Stanford's #2 quarterback, Chris Lewis, came off the bench to beat Texas and USC with his passing. Well, add Oregon to that list, because that's what he did last week. Chris Lewis hits Luke Powell here with a beautiful post-corner route, 24-yard touchdown pass on the left-hand side. Terrific. This will be UCLA's defense's toughest assignment. But remember, UCLA scored 49 straight points against Cal last week. I think UCLA outscores Stanford.
Yeah, I mean, Stanford helped themselves. A couple of block punts and an onside kick last week. Your Ducks get a chance to bounce back. You don't worry, because they can get right back into the Pac-10 race tonight. The preseason favorites in this conference are now underdogs to a team that was picked by many to be in the cellar. Can you imagine that happening in any other conference? I mean, you have to love the balance of the Pac-10. You don't see Rutgers favored over unbeaten Miami, or Baylor picked over Oklahoma, or Kentucky coming out of nowhere to be favored over Florida. Only in this conference. So Oregon with wounded pride, but Wazoo with just a bunch of wounded guys in this game. I mean, they've done a great job plugging holes with backup so far, because they've been nicked up all season.
All year long, it's been one thing or another for Washington State. Offensively, I think Washington State will have a lot of success. Jason Gesser will throw for big yards today. I think they'll score over 30 points. The problem is, will they be able to stop Joey Harrington, because he can score as well. The key to the game will be being able to pressure Joey Harrington. Washington State leads the Pac-10 with sacks with 26. Oregon has the fewest of sacks allowed in the Pac-10 with only 6, so something will have to give. I think Washington State's going to be able to apply some pressure. Finally having home field advantage. We always talk about Autzen Stadium. Well, Washington State now, with all the success, they will have home field advantage. Defense will step up. I think Washington State gets it done with another W.
That's a good pick. You pick at Washington State,
Washington State.
Not so fast apples. Because the Washington is the Apple State. Did you know that?
No, I did research. Oh, no.
No.
Oh, no.
No, you're not going to believe this stat when I tell you this one. Last week against Oregon, and against Stanford, this is what Oregon did. They scored 21 points in the first quarter, 200 yards. They had 687 yards of total offense, including 391 yards of returning. EO. And they lost the game. Here's number 15, Keenan Howry. 69 yards. Punt return. Number 2, Ontario Smith, 96 yards. Touchdown. Washington State has it all. They've got emotion. They got the home field. They got the apple. They got everything. But I'm picking good old Oregon and Joey Harrington to throw 4 touchdown passes, and Oregon upsets Washington State.
Proving you can make a pick even though you're chewing on an apple. If you picked Oregon, you got to get a Granny Smith, the green apple.
Oh, okay.
So this year, not so fast.
This one, not so fast. I lost last week.
A big concern for the Sooners, the health of Quentin Griffin. He has not looked real good in practice. He is their top back. We'll keep an eye on him today.
Oh, baby, big game, big week. Nebraska.
Well, very few things in sports should happen before noon, but this game is so big it's worth the early wake-up call. In the SEC, Auburn controls the West, but closes with 3 of 4 in a row with their unproven. Arkansas could really help out Ole Miss and LSU, who play tonight on ESPN2. Tigers got to win out. The Rebels don't play Florida, Tennessee, or South Carolina. In the East, we'll see if either of the upstarts can loosen the Florida-Tennessee stranglehold today. Lou Holtz really downplaying his divisional lead, well aware the Gamecocks are 0 for 11 at Knoxville. Average margin of the losses, 28 points. Even for new South Carolina, this is a troublesome offensive matchup against the Vols' very stout run defense. Less than 2 yards a carry, about 56 yards a game allowed so far. Tennessee is tops in TOP. They don't turn it over, only 7 all year. Now, Tony, Lou Holtz says he has a plan to kind of combat the 107,000 leathernecks there in Knoxville today. What do you think?
Well, Chris, you know, Coach Holtz, all week he's been talking about the noise at Neyland Stadium and really worried about it. In fact, he says if the officials don't let his guys hear the signals, he may just keep them in the huddle and take the penalty. Coach, it ain't going to work. They're just going to get louder. Trust me. In fact, South Carolina's biggest worry tonight is not crowd noise, but a Tennessee offense that grew up big time last week against Alabama. Kirk, Casey Clausen and those guys are starting to gel, and that's why I like the Vols.
You're exactly right. You look at the last 3 games, Casey Clausen is beginning to play very, very well, completing 67% of his passes, close to 900 yards, 6 touchdowns. Couple reasons. Number one, his running back, Travis Stevens, is on pace to break school records for carries and yards. And the other thing, his receivers, they're healthy, including number 4, Dante Stallworth. He returned to the lineup last week against Alabama. Had a big touchdown in that football game, 5 catches and 80 yards. Big story has been since going back to preseason camp. How would number 15, Kelly Washington, step up? The last 3 games, he's had 24 grabs and a couple scores. Kelly Washington, Dante Stallworth, all the receivers, the running game of Tennessee. I think Tennessee wins, but I'm telling you right now, Lou Holtz is as good as any coach in America in getting an underdog team to play at their best on the road. And I think they will today, but I think Tennessee still wins this football game at home.
That's a good pick. You know, and I remember one thing about Tennessee. Their offensive average over 400 yards in the last 3 games. But there's one hidden stat there that really helps them. It's the ball control running game. Example, against Alabama last week in the 4th quarter, Tennessee had the ball 13 of the 15 minutes. That's not bad. And their number 1 runner is Travis Stevens. You see Stevens here. He's the number 1 rusher in the SEC. I agree with Kirk. I think Lou Holtz is the best at getting his team ready, but the Big Orange is too much right there in Knoxville. I like the Big Orange also.
They kind of out-Holtz, especially if they have 200 yards and penalties because they won't come out of the huddle. That's going to be a problem. That's the twilight half of the ESPN2 doubleheader. Now, coming off the annual soiree dedicated to the destruction of brain cells down there in Jacksonville, the Gators arrive at the football game plenty angry, expecting a bounce back, a field day for Rex Grossman. Is Georgia defenseless? Well, the Dogs are second to last in sacks. They gave up huge yards to Vanderbilt and Kentucky. That's trouble. I mean, we could throw out a lot of ugly defensive stats, but here's another one for the offense. Since '94, Georgia quarterbacks against Florida, 2 touchdown passes and 14 interceptions. Tony, that's exactly the kind of thing that Mark Richt was kind of hired to reverse down there at Georgia.
Well, Chris, there's no doubt about it. You know, and believe it or not, Georgia has not won an SEC championship since 1982. Herschel Walker's sophomore year. And that's mainly because to win the SEC, you got to beat Steve Spurrier, something Georgia has done only once. But the Bulldog fans think the future is bright because when it comes to taking on Spurrier, they think their new coach, the cool, calm Mark Richt, has all the right stuff.
Did you see what he did?
Whether we're up or whether we're down, he'll be the same Coach Rick.
You know, as calm as he is, it really gives you in that state of mind. You know, you're looking at it and saying, you know, if the head coach can be cool about this, I think we can all be cool about it.
The biggest thing I try to do is keep the emotion out of the game and just focus strictly on what do we do now.
Some stupid miracle could still happen. We will not quit. We are trying to break their hearts.
I could tell he was calm, and you know, I was calm too because I was preparing myself to
to have to go back out there for the last 40 seconds. I know what he's calling to work. It's just we got to execute it.
I overheard him say either throw it to V or throw it away. It's either one of those plays that is going to be penthouse or outhouse.
And there's a touchdown! Touchdown, my God, a touchdown! We threw it to Haynes!
Regardless of what's going on, you stay calm, you do your job, and you got a chance to win. And we did win. I think it's just given more confidence to our football team about their head football coach.
But there was nothing calm about Rick's days as an assistant at Florida State, where he was part of a program that won 8 times in 13 meetings with Spurrier.
That mystique helped our players from day one. And our players say, hey, we worked this hard, and we work like this, we can have the same success as Florida State.
The big thing is I want the players to expect to win. Every single game we play, they better expect to win the game, and if they don't, we got a problem.
I really didn't know exactly who he was, but, when somebody said he was the Florida State's offensive coordinator, my eyes just lit up then.
Despite his initial youthful exuberance, Green has been the picture of control in the huddle, and he is playing beyond his years.
On paper, he's a redshirt freshman, but he plays like a fifth-year senior.
He has unbelievable poise. He doesn't get rattled. Tennessee game, we're down. He just goes out there like it's 1-minute drive at the end of a practice on Thursday. Just as calm as can be.
It was really remarkable between he and his quarterback. It's like a good marriage. Like they knew each other. Great temperament, same temperament.
He teaches us so much in the classroom that, when you come on the field, you actually know what you're seeing.
It's all clear in Athens now. After 18 years without an SEC championship, Georgia wants to become the perennial title contender that Florida has been for 12 years under Spurrier.
The big thing, we got to beat Florida. We got to beat the big teams or you're never going to get there.
It helps knowing that Coach Rick's already been there, already seen that, already knows what's going on.
The number one thing I'm asking from this team is that they fight as hard as they can for 60 minutes and do the very best they can, and then we'll see what happens at the end.
Now, guys, I've got an update on Musa Smith. The Georgia running back missed last week's game with a groin injury. Talked to Georgia officials late last night. They said they would not rule out the possibility that Smith would play today. It's going to be a game-time decision to see how much he can go. And, Kirk, if Musa Smith can go in this game, I think that helps the Dogs a lot. But still, I like the Gators in this one today.
Well, Tony, this is a great piece here to see the relationship between David Green and Mark Richt. You look at the last 3 games, what David Green's been able to do, 3 straight 300-yard games throwing the football. He's facing a Florida defense that has improved in nearly every defensive category except one, and that's creating turnovers. But that could change today if Alex Brown, the defensive end, has anything to say about it. He's 5.5 sacks this year. He's a career sack leader at the University of Florida. He seems to step up from time to time in the big games. Lito Shepherd is healthy and back and ready. He doesn't have an interception this year. Last year he had 6. Georgia has made great strides this year under their first-year coach, Mark Richt. But I tell you, they're catching the Gators at the wrong time, fresh off a loss. I like Florida, and I like Florida big in Jacksonville.
Nice pick, nice pick. I've been saying for 15 years now, and all you coaches out there, listen to me now. If you want to beat Steve Spurrier, you better stop his run first and then contain his pass second. And I'm going to give you a perfect example, and I want to read this because you won't believe it. In his last 15 regular season losses since 1996, Florida and Spurrier have averaged 1.4 yards per carry. Yo, that's the way to beat this guy. Auburn, 8, 9 men in the front. Look at them. That's what they did. And you know what? They won. But now old Ernest Graham wasn't playing. He's a great player. I think he's probably the best runner they've had in Florida in years. Now Ernest Graham is coming back. I think Georgia is, if they're smart, will play percentages, stop the run, and contain the pass. But I think Florida wins this game because it's played in Jacksonville, Florida, in the Gator Bowl. One of those Georgia people going to understand, get this game the hell out of Jacksonville and play them in Athens or something.
Never take it out of Jacksonville. Don't listen to people.
You know what? It doesn't matter where they play this one.
Okay. You know what? Florida's all concerned about the BCS standings. The Gators are number 11. That's way off the radar screen. If they win big, as you say, watch the numbers when they come out on Monday. See if they begin to climb. They have some very tough games ahead. The Gators not out of this, and you can watch the new numbers on SportsCenter Monday. It all begins at 6 o'clock Eastern time. Well, Bob Stoops and Frank Solich used to face each other. Stoops coordinated the defense at Kansas State. Solich running the offense in Nebraska. Now they're the bosses today. And welcome back to Lincoln. A week ago, Tracy Wistrom kept out by the bad wheel. Nothing's going to keep him out today. Guys like Wistrom certainly represent one of the foundations of Nebraska football. Strong bloodlines, brother tandems over the years like the Peters, the Makovickas, the Zadiskas, the Wiegerts, the Thomases, and a lot more. You got a few second-generation Huskers on this team, including a pair of identical twins. But also, the 2001 Huskers feature 4 brothers whose big brothers were stars here at Nebraska. Key starters in today's game: Tracy Wistrom, Chris Kelsey, Deion Booker, and Mark Vedral. Here's Shelley Smith on Nebraska's band of brothers trying to further the family business. Championship jewelry.
They were young men with wide eyes as they watched their big brothers play for a Nebraska team that dominated college football in the mid-90s. The impressions left are still vivid.
Just coming here the first home game that he played in, and when they played music and just sending goosebumps down the back of your neck.
I grew up in a town of 2,000 people, and you know there might be maybe 300 or 400 people at a football game. Well, then you come to, you know, Lincoln for a big game, and so it was awesome, and it was something I'll never forget.
Just watching him, the excitement he had for playing for Nebraska and the fun he had playing, I mean, it just got into me just like, wow.
Once you're really connected to this program and know what it's all about, it's hard to turn down.
Chris Kelsey's brother Chad was part of the national championship teams in 1995 and 1997. Mark Vedral had 2 brothers play at Nebraska, Mike in the early 90s and John, who along with Deion Booker's brother Michael were part of Nebraska's national championship teams in 1994 and 95. Tracy Wistrom's brother Grant won 3 national titles in 4 years. Following in their brothers' footsteps, as it often is at Nebraska, was an easy decision.
When my brothers came through here and you know, told me their experiences and told me the way they were treated and cared for, I mean, this is where I wanted to be because I wanted to experience what they had experienced and enjoyed so much.
There was no more debating about Texas or their programs this way, or they want me to play this position, or Colorado this way. It was, once my brother said, I want you to go to Nebraska, that was it. It's almost kind of a recruiting tool in an aspect that, you know, good genes usually run in the family. So, you know, these coaches want the brothers to come here, and that's how they take it, and that's how we treat it here, that everybody's family.
I think if you go through the history of the coaches that have been here, you look at Bob Devaney, you look at Tom Osborne, there's such continuity that everybody's pretty much on the same page as to how you want to approach everything, and that includes your players.
But what about the pressure to live up to Big Brother's accomplishments? Booker's brother was also defensive MVP of the 1996 national championship game. Kelsey's brother was captain and academic All-American. And Wistrom's brother won the Lombardi Award and has already had his number retired.
I've said it before that if you're going to be in anybody's shadows, who better shadow being than a 2-time All-American Lombardi Award winner?
And I mean, find myself, you know, looking in the record books and, you know, seeing where I stand and where Chad was. I think it's more of a distraction than anything. But, you know, every once in a while, I was kind of, you know, kind of curious.
After a while, I just had to realize that I got to be myself. You know, I can't be my brother. What he did here was great, but I got to just do what I could do here and just live with it and be happy with it.
I think it's been special for me and my brothers, but at the same time, it's been special for my entire family. It's just been kind of a stone in our life for so long, for 14 years, that I was mentioned earlier. I don't know what my dad's going to do when he can't come down to football games anymore.
And you know, all those big brothers watching the little brothers very careful today and demanding the excellence. Let's break this game down. First of all, when Nebraska has the football, Kirk, maybe it's not dominance, but efficiency they want to worry about. They've had the 11 fumbles. That's a high total. In Oklahoma, with those 23 takeaways and the penchant for defensive touchdowns, in almost every big game they produce a defensive touchdown.
Well, looking at Nebraska's offense, obviously it is built around the ability of Eric Crouch. Today, against a stingy, experienced Oklahoma defense, it's going to be really geared to stop him. Eric Crouch will have to be at his best today, running the option and throwing the play-action pass. Eric Crouch one of the best in the country as far as a quarterback. He has the ability to move around and do so many things. He'll need to be accountable because, as I said, Oklahoma's going to stack the line. He needs to be able to make people miss on the option, which he can do, close to 100 yards a game. Here's the thing that I love about what Nebraska's doing this year. After a big turnover earlier this year against Notre Dame, 1st and 10, play action pass, and that is the key to the game. 1st and 10. Last year, Nebraska ran 80% on 1st and 10. Consequently, they averaged 3rd and 8, and their offense isn't built for 3rd and 8. The important thing today is mix in just enough play action passes off the option on 1st and 10 to try to slow down Roy Williams, Brandon Everidge, and that Oklahoma defense.
Well, Kirk, the last time I saw the Oklahoma defense, they destroyed all those good-looking All-American types at Texas. They just did it simply by out-hitting them. And I tell you what, I was impressed by Oklahoma's defensive players. They all can run, they all can hit, and they're well coached. But my favorite was a guy that no one's ever talking about, number 45, Jimmy Wilkerson. If you watch Jimmy here, he's one of the best-looking athletes I've seen. He makes a good pass rush here. And here's one of Kirk's favorites, number 38, Roy Williams, coming up and hitting. Watch, boom! He's a player, I'm telling you. Now, last year, Oklahoma started playing the game against Nebraska by defending them from the outside in. Nebraska scored the first 2 times they had the football. Then Oklahoma changed to defend Nebraska from the inside out. No more points for Nebraska. That's the secret. You defend Nebraska from the inside out and run to the football.
You say so. The fast start last year didn't seem to matter, but I think this year at home, better defense, a fast start was much more important for Nebraska. I think they can make it hold up. We'll come back here, take a look at the other side of things. You know, Barry and Tom Osborne, they were bitter rivals. They become real close friends visiting today on the sidelines. 38 straight seasons of sellouts. These folks are used to early kickoffs. They'll be ready. You know, the week of a big game, many coaching staffs, even good ones, sometimes pucker up, frankly. They create concerns. They conjure up challenges. They search for stuff to worry about. Not at Oklahoma. Not even when the stuff is legit, like a second-time starting quarterback in this zoo. No problem. Like a ground game that has some very ugly numbers. Not worried about that. Like a kicker who's been shaky in a tight, tough road game. No worries. Stoops and his troops, they concede nothing, ever. And Steve, I think that confidence is so contagious for his team.
Chris, you're absolutely right, because people say that Stoops has never had a bad day. His colleagues, his friends, he doesn't know what it is. How would he know? He doesn't ever accept it if it happened. The truth is that since he arrived, the program works. Why? Well, who knows why, but we do know this. Stoops has made them rewrite the record books and maybe even update dictionaries.
Inside the hallowed halls of knowledge, linguists can now relax. The derivation of the newest word in the English language, a noun, has been traced to Norman, Oklahoma.
Winstinct. An instinct to win. Winstinct.
Winstinct. You're talking about center magic? Winstinct. This is the first time I ever heard that word before.
The Sooners may not have heard it, but they do define it.
Absolutely. There's an intangible or an instinct to win on our football team. It's been proven over and over and over.
20 times over they've proven it. At home, on the road, high scoring, low scoring, from behind or with the lead, Oklahoma's won.
The more you win, the more you want, and it's like a drug. And you know, right now we're pretty heavy addicts.
If and when this team loses a football game, will you be shocked?
Yeah, I mean, of course. Yeah, I will be. That's not even in my mind, losing right now.
I can't say there's any one reason how you get that. I believe it's developed.
Developed through hard work in the offseason and during the season, he says. Players say Winstinct walked through the Oklahoma door when Stoops did.
Right when he got here, he said we don't have to take time to become a winning program, and we all bought into it.
How did they impart that attitude or belief into you guys?
Being tough on us. You know, it's that tough love. When they got here, we didn't know how to work.
Now they do. Example, Texas, late in the game, Roy Williams told to blitz, but to not leave his feet.
That's a great example of an athlete that knew how to win.
Williams got him on the blitz!
You know, it's that little voice in your head. You know, it's the little bad man and the good man, and, you know, I don't know which one told me, but one of them told me to jump, and I jumped.
And the Sooners found a way to win, thanks to Williams, thanks to a team-wide instinct that carried quarterback Jason White off the bench when Nate Hibble was injured to the starting job.
That's mainly the reason that I've, been successful here so far. It's the teammates, willing to win.
Willing to find a way to win, a term Sooners will not embrace because it implies an element of luck.
We've never been one to say, hey, find a way to win. That's never been us.
Luck has nothing to do with it. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. And we prepare, as well or better than any team in the country.
I'd like to think our team knows how we need to win as opposed to finding a way to win.
With 20 straight wins, who can argue?
Chris, I don't know that you could say Stoops' approach is all that winnovative, but once he instilled that intangible quality into that team, well, since the 90s, they've been invincible.
You're right, Steve, but he wouldn't even concede finding a way to win. There's no such thing as luck. Everybody could use some luck. Let's break this thing down. When Oklahoma has the football, one hidden stat, guys. Their offense has not been as overpowering as last year with Josh Heupel, but the average starting field position for Oklahoma is their own 40-yard line. That is a huge, huge edge. Keep an eye on that today.
I'll give you a concern. One of the things, if I were an Oklahoma fan, how will the offensive line hold up in this atmosphere against a revved-up defense like Nebraska will be today? Because let's face it, Oklahoma's offensive line is young, and they have struggled all year when teams have blitzed. Nebraska's going to blitz today almost every play. How will Jason White handle it? We've talked about what he brings to the table, athletic ability, awareness in the pocket here with the pressure on, coming in as a backup to get a big first down with his scrambling ability. 4th and 2 on the option to Quentin Griffin. Outstanding athletic ability, outstanding poise. It'll be needed to be demonstrated again today. One of the things to watch is Nebraska loves to play man-free. Very dangerous. If Oklahoma can protect, look for two things. Number one, the quick option pitch to Quentin Griffin. Number two, the deep pass. I'll tell you right now, if they protect Jason White, Oklahoma's wide receivers will torch Nebraska's corners.
Boy, you're absolutely right on that point, because the last time I saw Nebraska defense play Oklahoma, Nebraska was leading 14-0. And good old Oklahoma played a lot of man-for-man. I mean, Nebraska played a lot of man-for-man against the Oakland receivers. Uh-oh. Oklahoma scored 31 consecutive points. Now watch here, number 5, DeJuan Gross. That's number 5 right there, the corner, plays nice zone defense. That's important later on. Chris Kelsey, number 57, tremendous pursuit. Now last week, Nebraska's defense against Texas Tech on pass defense was horrible. Horrible. Why? Man coverage and no pass rush. So I agree. Watch Nebraska. Blitz them, play zone. And I'm telling you right now, if Nebraska doesn't play a spy on Jason White, the quarterback, Jason White will run and beat Nebraska today with his running ability.
That's what he did against Texas.
He did. We saw it.
Big running plays. All right.
Quentin Griffin.
We'll have the final selections, the picks on this game. Of course, on ESPN, we are counting down to Joe Paterno and Penn State hosting Ohio State at the top of the hour. We'll be right back. Our thanks to Goodyear for the aerial pictures. All right, time now to predict this game. Joe Paterno and Penn State getting set for Ohio State on ESPN. Now on ABC Sports in a few seconds, this
anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say